Welcome back to another episode from View from the Bridge, Football.London's Chelsea podcast. I'm Scott Trotter, back in the UK, having toured the United States following Chelsea. And today I'm joined by my good colleague, Bobby Vincent. How are you doing, Bobby?
Yeah, I'm good, Scott. Unfortunately, I've just been stuck in England in the rain whilst you've been living the high life out in America. But
Yeah, I'm going to say, having returned from 30 degrees plus, which I will say is not my natural environment. It's a bit hot for me. But coming back to the grey skies of England and the UK, it's been quite the change.
There's nothing worse than coming back from abroad, wherever you go, and it's been hot, and you come back, and I swear, like, it's always cloudy when you come back. It's never ever been sunny when you come back.
Yeah, and I think after quite a promising pre-season, there's definitely a bit of a cloud around Chelsea today as well. It's not been the best start to the week ahead of Liverpool this weekend.
Yeah, obviously the Anthony Taylor thing as well.
Oh, yeah, just the news you want for the first game of the Premier League.
I guess we quickly mentioned that Anthony Taylor's been appointed referee for Chelsea at the weekend, and as you guys all know, he's not the most popular figure among Chelsea supporters. I think it's the same with Liverpool fans as well. I don't think he's a very well-respected referee, so it'll be interesting to see that.
It was him that refereed Chelsea Liverpool early last season as well. Or was it the year before? I can't remember now.
I think it was last season. Yeah.
But yeah, so plenty of fun and games to return on Sunday, but I guess we might as well crack straight on. And the news that you kind of can't avoid at the minute is Christopher Nkunku. Chelsea have confirmed that he has undergone surgery and set to be out for an extended period. Bobby, I know you reported that could be a number of months. Obviously, after that injury, he picked up against Borussia Dortmund in Chelsea's final preseason game in Chicago at Soldier Field. Perhaps the less said about the pitch, the better. It wasn't good. There was a bit of a collision, I think maybe with Matt Hummels, where Nkunku probably should have won a penalty, but he continued on from that point. And then I think the moment just before he went off, Nicholas Jackson attempted to play a pass and he seemed to get caught in the turf and he didn't really make much of an attempt to get it. And he hurt his knee. He had that ice during the first half on the bench. Couldn't see him during the second half. And he did seem to kind of walk away of his own volition at the end of the game. But ultimately, it's not been good news for that knee at all. And I guess, do you just want to say where things stand with that from your knowledge, Bobby, and just how big a blow is that for Chelsea?
It's a really big blow. Reported on it this morning. Was told it's a meniscus injury, which I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I know exactly what it is, but it's to do with his left knee, I believe. And yeah, I was told months, and then I've seen a few people, Matt Law, come out. He's usually very spot on with these things, and he's saying about 4 months, which would rule him out till December, I believe, which is an absolutely huge blow for Chelsea because they've just bought this guy. He's played really well in pre-season. He's shown that he can play in a number of positions, whether that's as a number 9 or a number 10. But I think the most important thing for it all was he just looked like a goal scorer. He just, like, his goals were not the sort of goals you'd associate with Chelsea over the last couple of years. And it looked like it was a breath of fresh air because it looked like Chelsea had finally gotten this man who's going to stick away 15, 20 goals in a season. And yeah, it's a real big blow for Chelsea. And the mood on social media this morning has been pretty dire because of it, understandably. And it's one of them that definitely worse than first feared, because I think Pochettino, after you would have been in the press conference, Scott, he didn't seem too down about it. Seemed whether or not that he was just trying to keep a level head to protect the player. But yeah, it's definitely a very bad injury, and you got to feel for the player as well. He's just came from Germany to England, and he's not even played a competitive game yet for Chelsea, and he's going to be missing what is effectively half of the season with a knee injury. And yeah, I just hope he can recover quickly and hopefully get back sooner than December. But yeah, devastating for the player and the club.
Yeah, Chelsea haven't had a great deal of luck with signing French players for big money and then seeing them go down injured for lengthy periods of time after it.
It's true. It's true.
And yeah, I think, as you said, Nkunku looked like a game changer, particularly with no Champions League football this year, just to have him on the pitch. And he looks such a bit of a genius in the box, to be honest. So to not have him is a really big blow. Of course, they've got Nicholas Jackson, who's done okay in pre-season as well. Looked very exciting, but I guess in an ideal world, you would have liked to see them play together. So yeah, a brutal blow for Chelsea, and it's kind of difficult to see how they automatically replace them. I think Mikhailo Mudryk came on for him against Dortmund. Again, he's looked bright during bits of pre-season, but I think there still is that element of where would have Nkunku played, and I guess the question kind of spins around again is, do Chelsea need another forward to add to the ranks? I guess Armando Broja will be back training with the first team now, having missed out on that pre-season tour. Obviously, he will still be working to full fitness and match fitness in particular. And there's obviously a great deal of talk about a certain Romelu Lukaku and Vlahovic from Juventus. I guess more than anything, what is your opinion, Bobby? Do Chelsea need another striker? Will this push them to do something more?
I think they need first of all, I think they need a winger or either can play either in the middle or on the right wing, and that's very much what they've sort of been looking at with, the Kudus links, the Elise links, the Cherky links, sort of someone who can play on the right wing and is also equally happy in the centre. And I think from what we saw in pre-season and how certain players played, like you mentioned, Jackson, definitely surprised a lot of people with how, sort of well-rounded he looked. And so you would have thought he would have been playing number 9 regardless of Nkunku's injury against Liverpool. And then you probably would have put Nkunku in number 10. So now you've got that number 10 spot that sort of needs filling, because if you look at the options, none of them are real natural number 10s. You've got Chukwuemeka who can play there, and he's shown glimpses of his talent in pre-season. But, he's still 19 years old, and whether or not he can be trusted there for the whole season or for, the few months that Nkunku's out, remains to be seen. And you've got a few players who can play there, like Sterling's played there before, but he's not done it in a Chelsea shirt yet. So maybe a position change would be something that would suit him. So yeah, I think they desperately need a right winger who can play number 10 or vice versa. And I probably still think they would need number 9 as well. Is that because you've got Armando Broja who's coming back from injury. Mason Burstow looked good in pre-season, but I don't think he'll really be involved in the first team squad throughout the season. And then you've obviously got Lukaku who's going to leave, hopefully, for Chelsea, and then Nicholas Jackson. So there aren't a lot of options there. So in an ideal world, I think Pochettino would want 2 more attackers. Whether or not that'll happen, that's quite doubtful at the moment. But I think definitely one will come through the door, and I think it'll probably be someone who could play in the number 10 role, because that's one of the most important players for the system Pochettino plays. And missing Nkunku there, it'll be a real big blow for him. So I think they need to act quite quickly there.
Yeah, and I guess what we should also touch on, given we haven't spoken since, is that Chelsea have added players to the squad. Axel Disasi over the weekend became a Chelsea player. He has taken the number 2 shirt, I think, yeah. And we'll touch on those shirt numbers shortly too. I think going into the summer, defence probably looked like somewhere Chelsea didn't particularly need to strengthen. They had a lot of bodies there. Thiago Silva, Levi Colwill coming back, Benoit Badiashile obviously recovering from injury, Wesley Fofana, I think many people would have expected big things from, but again, suffered an injury and is out for a lengthy period of time. Trevor Chalobah, although his future has been uncertain. And then even Bashir Humphreys has been really impressive in pre-season, and I think Pochettino's a bit of a fan of him. but we probably see him move out on loan again, I think. But we have got Disasi. That maybe puts a bit more pressure on numbers, but Pochettino kind of made it clear through preseason that Fofana's injury has made them certainly interested in a defender. He also made it clear they wanted experience. Disasi's a little bit older than most of Chelsea's squad at the ripe old age of 25, I think.
Yeah.
He obviously had experience playing with Badiashile at Monaco. I guess just what do you make of the signing? I think, does that mean Chalobah's days are numbered now, maybe?
I think it certainly comes as a blow to Chalobah because, when Fofana got injured, obviously no one wishes an injury on anyone, and especially like your teammate, but it definitely gave him a chance to potentially prove himself to Pochettino in the right centre-back role, because it's only Thiago Silva. That it would have only been Thiago Silva there, and 38 years old, despite Chelsea not playing as many games this year. There would have been more of a chance for him, but I think the fact that they went out and spent quite a lot of money on Disasi almost straight away, really, without properly thinking about it, I think that does show a quite a bleak future for Chalobah and suggests that he could be on his way this summer. That was the plan, sort of leading up to Fofana's injury. It was Chelsea were open to letting Chalobah go, and he was open to leaving the club. And I think, with a few weeks left of the transfer window, I think that's something that we could definitely see some progress on. It's a shame because I think we've spoken about Chalobah a lot on this podcast, and we both like him, and we both think he does a really good job when he does play. And from his own selfish point of view, I do think that he needs to leave Chelsea because he has aspirations to play for England, and he's not young anymore. He's like you said, he's probably one of the more senior members of the Chelsea squad now because of how young they all are. I think he's 23 or 24. So
yeah, 24.
Yeah, so he probably does need to move now. Obviously, Chelsea wouldn't be against keeping him because he's another centre-back option, and that was always the plan anyway. They were open to letting him go, but weren't actively looking to sell him like they have been with some players. And I think the feeling was mutual as well prior to Fofana's injury. He was, would have been open to leave him, but wasn't pushing to leave. But I think Disasi coming in probably means that there isn't a future for him, and that's a real sad shame. But yeah, Disasi, I think, Chelsea have looked at a lot of French players, especially since Lawrence Stewart came in, and he was very big on the signing of Disasi as well, apparently. Can't say I know too much about him, but he's a unit of a man. Probably similar to Badiashile in that sense. When you see Badiashile in the flesh, he's very big in it. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of role he has. Like you would 100% expect it to be Thiago Silva and Levi Colwill at the weekend. And probably for the majority of games if they can build up a good partnership. But yeah, I mean, any signing's exciting. And signing a French centre-back, I mean, think of all the good French centre-backs that are around. The chances are he's probably going to be quite good. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he does.
Yeah, and of course he played in the World Cup for France as well. So obviously it does come with some caliber. And I think for me, what is just kind of hard to get away from, and Disasi, don't get me wrong, could be an unbelievable sign and could go on to play for the club for a lot of years. And I don't think in some senses you can criticize it too much, but I think it's almost hard to get your head around doing business in the back line, selling Trevor Chalobah, perhaps because he can offer some, profit on FFP and you can offset Disasi over a number of years with amortization. But it feels just like some unnecessary business when you have priorities elsewhere in the team. Maybe they did want a replacement for Fofana. Maybe that is true, and they see that they need a profile similar to Fofana there with some experience. But I don't know. It's obviously budget that perhaps could be used elsewhere, perhaps on a Moises Caicedo. I guess it's tricky because I guess these things are independent as well. But even with Conor Gallagher, he's obviously, as we've kind of written a lot about, been open to a move, player and club, but Chelsea haven't, got any midfielders at the minute. So can you really consider that as something you're open to? I think it's the only kind of confusing bit when Chelsea have done some pretty good business on the whole so far this summer. But yeah,
I think with Chalobah as well. He played well towards the end of last season at right back, and that we're only a Reece James injury away from it just being Malo Gusto. And Reece James, without predicting an injury, there are. I'm going to do exactly that and predict an injury. he probably will get injured at points this season because that is the sort of condition he's in at the moment. And that's really sad. But when you've just got a young, inexperienced defender of Malo Gusto, who does look very impressive, don't get me wrong, but I think having someone like Trevor Chalobah who can slot in that role, and he's shown that he can play in DM as well.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised we've not seen that this summer, actually.
Yeah, especially with Chelsea's attacking midfielders. I think without having seen much of him now, I think just the way he's built and how good he is on the ball, I think it would seem like quite a good fit. So yeah, I think there's versatility there as well that you'll be missing if you sell him. And like you said, Scott, I don't understand it really at all from a business point of view, like you said with the FFP thing and the pure profit. That perhaps would entice you to sell him more, but I just think as a player and as a character as well, like he wants to. He might be open to leaving Chelsea, but in an ideal world, he'd want to stay because he loves the club, and he's spoken about that loads of times. And like wearing the captain's armband the other day, how much that meant to him. Yeah, it's a shame, but I do think we'll probably see him leave in the next few weeks, and he won't be short of suitors. We know that there's lots and lots of interested clubs from England and from abroad in him because he's a super talented player. And yeah, I just think it will be another. Like you said, I think this summer has been positive as a whole, but on the whole even. But with a few gaps where they could sign. Obviously, we'll talk about Caicedo a bit more. But if they do let Chalobah go, then I do think that'll be a mistake that we could, cast back to the Roman Abramovich years with letting players leave who come through the academy at Chelsea.
Yeah, but I guess we move on to another academy central defender in Levi Colwill. Obviously, he signed his contract extension last week, and a big boost to the club after all that speculation about how his future could lie elsewhere. He kind of poured cold water on that a little bit, said it was always Chelsea if the opportunity was there. And we've had the squad numbers released today, and he's kind of been handed the number 26 shirt. I think it's one he's worn before at the clubs, sort of linked to his birthday on February 26th, but you can't ignore the John Terry comparison there, can you?
All the Koulibaly ones. I think he's taken it because he loved Koulibaly. No, of course. Yeah, and I mean, there's been a lot of talk about him being, the next John Terry, which is an easy link to make when it's a Chelsea Academy product who plays in that position. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a big, even though it's not like, I suppose it's not one of those iconic numbers everywhere like a number 9 is or a number 7 is, but at Chelsea it means something more because of John Terry wearing it, and big shoes to fill. But I don't think you need to worry about that really. I think there's a lot of stuff built up by a lot of people on shirt numbers really, and I mean we talk about the number 9 shirt being cursed at Chelsea. Me personally, I don't believe that's actually a thing. I don't like all the added pressure that comes with shirt numbers. Really, I don't think it particularly matters. But so I don't think Levi Colwill will be thinking too much about it. To be honest, like you said, it's something to do with his birthday. He's taken my number 26. Yeah, move on. And yeah, there's been quite a few shirt number changes and quite a few interesting ones.
Yeah, I'll quickly run through, I guess, some of the new players. Obviously, Disasi, we mentioned, has number 2. Nkunku has 18. I think that saw Brozier move to 19.
I did a tweet about it, to be fair. I can read the number now if you want.
Yeah, obviously that number relevant because that would have been Mason Mount's number before he left as well.
Yeah.
Robert Sanchez has 31, Nicholas Jackson 15. I guess notably not having that number 9 shirt you just mentioned, regardless if you believe in the curse, which like you, it seems a bit ridiculous. Gusto's taken 27, Santos 20, Ogotchukwu 16. I guess interesting to some degree that he's received a number, given that there's a certain expectation he could head out on loan pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, then we've got Enzo Fernandez has moved from the 5 shirt to the number 8. We've got Mudryk with number 10, Madueke number 11, all obviously the high profile numbers. Raheem Sterling to number 7 as well. Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. Kukurea, number 3, Badia Shields picked up 5, Chukwuemeka's moved to 17. Some really interesting ones. I think looking at who hasn't received them, Slanina, I guess, expected to head out on loan pretty soon. I think Bashir Humphreys again, I guess you expect him to head out on loan. But some of the Casadai, yeah, that's a good shout. And then I guess some of the young guys who have received them, Lewis Hall, obviously speculation around a move to Crystal Palace for him. Eddie Beach, Lucas Bergstrom both have numbers. I think you reported earlier that some of that Eddie Beach is expected to stay around at least for the first 6 months of the season to kind of get experience around the first team. Lucas Bergstrom featured during pre-season. Mason Burstow has been given a number as well, 37. I think that's a kind of interesting one because I think before he went out into the expectation that he could make a loan move pretty swiftly. I think Oxford were interested in him perhaps, and so it'll be interesting to see how long that lasts, or maybe this is just a bit of a reward after, filling in and playing pretty well. Maybe Nkunku changes things, maybe he sticks around a little bit longer, who knows. I guess there's anything just standing out to you about those numbers? I know we don't take too much stock in them, but any that you're, shocked by or wouldn't like to see?
No, I'm happy like Mudryk's taken 10. I think, it is a sort of prime number for those attacking positions. Sterling with 7's no surprise. That's what he was at Man City for all those years. And so it comes as no surprise. Enzo Fernandez is an 8. It's an interesting one. Obviously, we spoke about John Terry being 26, a certain Frank Lampard being number 8. And we obviously know how much Lampard loved Enzo when he played with, coached him towards the end of last season. He spoke very highly of him, so that's a real good one.
Yeah,
Badia Shields got just added 1 to his number. He's now 5. It's a bit of a strange one that just go from 4 to 5, but whatever he wants in it. But yeah, what were you going to say, Scott?
Just going to say, interesting with Fernandez that he has moved to the number 8. Is that a hint of the position he wants to play rather than sitting deep in the Chelsea side?
Yeah, I think it's his dad, wasn't it, who came out and said about him wanting to play a bit more advanced, and I think it's definitely a role he can do. We've seen that glimpse of it in pre-season, and he does add a lot when going forward without necessarily having being a major goal scoring threat. But we saw, I think it was Leicester away last year. I don't think you were there actually, Scott.
No, it's the pasta Havertz though, wasn't it? Yeah,
the pasta Havertz. That was the sort of role position on the pitch, area on the pitch he'd be taken up, you would think, if he was as a number 8. And there's no doubt he's got that killer pass. He's the best passer on the Chelsea team. So I do think it's something he could do. And yeah, whether or not the number 8 means that, or he'd simply just wanted it for personal reason, we don't know. But yeah, some really interesting ones. Kukurea down to 3 is quite interesting, given all the speculation over his future as well, and Chelsea being open to selling him. Nice to see like Andre Santos get a fairly decent number, 20. Not because you sort of think the lower down it is, the more he'll be involved in the first team, ridiculously. But I think that is kind of how it works. Madueke 11 as well is a good one. Is very typical wingers number, and that's exactly what Madueke is. And hoping we see some bits of him in the opening games of the season, because obviously we haven't seen anything from him this summer for Chelsea. He's had a slight hamstring problem. But yeah, as much as you can read into numbers, there's some quite interesting ones, I'm sure. I'm sure there'll be a lot of Chelsea fans out there looking forward to buying Sterling 7 shirt.
Yeah, and I'm sure, Bobby. I'm sure. Yeah. One that they might look to buy in a few weeks' time, with the shirt I think going on sale next week as well. Actually, there is a certain number 25 left vacant by Chelsea, and there is a certain midfielder who plays for Brighton who wore the number 25 last season, I believe. Moises Caicedo, the name, the saga that is destined to run forevermore. I think with Chelsea. I guess just to kind of set out where we are, Chelsea saw another bid rejected. Was it last week, the week before? My concept of time is totally gone. They seem set to make another attempt this week. He obviously missed the Brighton friendly at the weekend. Brighton came out quickly to say it was precautionary, didn't want to risk him ahead of the Premier League move. There has been the suggestion that Caicedo does just really want the move to Chelsea as well. I guess maybe even a little bit momentum for the first time this week that, this move could actually happen as well. But I think it probably still boils down to Chelsea being willing to pay a fee that Brighton have kind of set out for a long time, and that's going to be around that £100 million mark.
Yeah, Chelsea are planning a fourth bid or fifth bid. I don't even know at this point, but another bid. And I think the last one was worth about 80 million altogether, with add-ons and everything included. And Brighton would just have none of it again. And it will just be interesting to see how much Chelsea increase their bid by. Because if they get, if they're doing sort of what they've been upping it by about 5 million each time, sort of thing. And that I don't think that'll be good enough again. And yeah, it just comes down to who's the more stubborn club at this point. And I really wouldn't put that past Brighton from what we've seen. So yeah, I don't see this ending soon. I do think Chelsea will eventually get him, just because they usually do in these sort of situations, and they certainly have done under Todd Bowley. But it is a bit frustrating because you would have liked to see him in that. By now, you would have thought he would have had a few sessions with his new teammates if he was to join Chelsea. But we're going into the weekend now, and Chelsea are very light on midfielders, central midfielders, and I know a lot of fans are frustrated, and they just all want it to be over. Like, I want it to be over, you want it to be over. It's just gone on far too long, and yeah, I mean, it's been like the transfer saga of like macro updates. Like, there doesn't seem to be anything like update wise. We haven't been able to provide it. It's just always been Chelsea are lining up another bid, and the bid will be rejected, and Chelsea will continue talks. There's never really been too much to sort of bring you guys. And yeah, like I said, I think Chelsea will eventually get him. And I didn't actually know he was number 25 for Brighton, but that'd be funny if that's the reason why no one took 25. But I don't know. It's not a particularly popular number. But yeah, I just want it to be over, Scott. I just want it to be over. It's killing me. This summer as well has seemed to have gone on for even longer than previous summers. I don't know why that is, because obviously it hasn't. But it's just, for me, it just seems like the transfer window's been open for like a year now, and we've been talking about Moises Caicedo. Manuel Ugarte. Remember how long ago? That was like a few months ago, right? But that seems genuinely years ago. That was right at the start, obviously. I think it was back in May. I'm not even sure if the season was over fully, but yeah, just get it done. Just get it done one way or another.
Yeah, and I think looking back to January as well, obviously, I guess there was some Caicedo interest in them, but you look at Enzo Fernandez, I guess in some respects it started the same way. Chelsea had their interest. Benfica had a price that they wanted to see. Chelsea weren't willing to meet it, and then all of a sudden, Chelsea met the price come the end of the window. Better Egbali obviously had a big role in getting that one over the line at the depth, and it's hard to, not see comparisons there. I think there's probably going to be a lot of criticism of how Chelsea have approached this deal, particularly with Brighton, I guess, not really needing to sell Caicedo's got a long-term contract. Even before he signed the extension in March, he had years remaining. They've obviously made it quite clear they're quite happy to keep him. But, I guess at the same time, Chelsea do have a responsibility to try and get the best deal they can. Whether they should try and resolve that before season starts, I guess it is another matter, because it does start dragging on. It's then when can he bed in with the team and that kind of thing. And I think, like you, I wouldn't be surprised to see the deal done, even if it was late in the window and Chelsea end up meeting that fee, because I think there's almost a lack of other options in that position who can operate on the same caliber and, Premier League ready to come in and just do the job. So I guess it boils down, do you think we're going to be up with minutes to midnight on transfer deadline day still waiting for Caicedo to sign? Is that the situation where it's going to land?
Yeah, I think so. Personally, I hope not, but I can't see any other way. Yeah, I think it will be similar to Enzo Fernandez in January and, previous windows as well. But it's just one of them. You just never feel like, me personally, haven't felt like there's going to be a solution quickly throughout this whole saga. And I do think it's one that's going to take long. I think last week, Brighton, a couple of reporters reported that he was subject of a bid from Saudi Arabia. I think that was all very much, without knowing for sure, but I think that was all very much trying to scare Chelsea. And there was also that mystery Premier League club as well who were interested in him. And, I do think there's a lot of mind games going on here. But I do think Chelsea will eventually get him. And, I think it'll be minutes or seconds before, or even after the deadline, because the deadline's not even the deadline, really, is it? If you
get the deal sheet in.
Yeah. So, it's going to be a late one for us, Scott.
Yeah. I think for anybody looking for some hope, last year, Mark Cucurella, I guess depending on your view of Cucurella's time at Chelsea, but last year he missed a Brighton friendly with a, I guess, air quotes, injury, and then 6 days later was a Chelsea player. So, maybe by this weekend, if we're all very lucky, Caicedo could be pictured in a Chelsea top. But that is, of course, not the only area of transfer business. Even after hacking down the squad, Chelsea have plenty of players on the books and plenty of loan moves still ahead to complete. I guess the most prominent one that's worth talking about at the minute is Gabriel Slonina. He joined up the preseason squad late, having played in the Under-20 World Cup and then the Gold Cup with the United States. He played the final game of the Premier League Summer Series. He missed out in his hometown of Chicago. But obviously, a lot of things haven't expected of Slonina, having joined 12 months ago for a big fee for a teenager. Looks very good, but, has to go out and find some experience, and it looks like Belgium for him, Bobby.
Yeah, KAS Eupen. Was it KAS Eupen? Sorry, I don't really know my Belgian football too well. He's due in Belgium today, I believe. Whether or not he's there right now, I don't know. We're recording this on Tuesday afternoon, so by the time you hear it, it may well be confirmed. We don't know, but it's moved ahead very quickly. Chelsea were quite keen on him staying in England, whether that was in the Championship or would have been probably the most likely move. But that hasn't happened for whatever reason, and he's off to Belgium, season on a long loan. I think it's good for him because there was talk of, it wasn't real talk, but it was some people had the opinion that it might be good for him to stay around for a year because of the lack of goalkeepers. But obviously, Chelsea have now signed Robert Sanchez, and I don't think it's any good for Slonina to just be sitting around playing for the development squad. I'd rather see him go out and play first team football. And the club he's joining are, albeit 2 games into a season, they're 4th in the league at the moment. So it looks like they could compete at the right end of the table. And, if he's going to be their first choice goalkeeper or however they view him and he gets some first team minutes, I think that'll be good for him. A good move. I think it makes sense for Chelsea, and like you mentioned earlier, we've found out that Eddie Beach is sort of set to stay around the squad as well. So that's, I guess he would be sort of fourth choice, if you like, behind Sanchez and Bettinelli and obviously Kepa. And that kind of gives you a cushion almost, just in case. So I don't think there was any need for Sanina to stay around.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, as I said, probably expected him to go Championship just to kind of get used to the physicality of what could come his way in England. But I think, like I said, playing football by far the most important thing at the moment.
The issue is as well, like he's 19 years old, and that's a big thing to play in the Championship at 19. Like, it's such a competitive league now. If you look at the teams in the Championship this season, it's mental. They're like, it's probably as competitive as I've ever seen it. So I'm not sure he would have got much football in the Championship. And then you're thinking League One, maybe he's a bit better than that, or perhaps the same deal. So I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world to see him go out to a European league, albeit not a well sort of recognised as one of the top European leagues. But yeah, great move for him.
Yeah, I guess maybe we touch upon those kind of Elise talks, and the I guess host maybe exaggerating it, but the other options Chelsea are kind of looking at in that position. I guess, what do you make of them first, Bobby? I think Elise obviously out injured. Another French player obviously has a relative within Chelsea's setup in the academy as well. Very exciting player in many regards. And I guess you kind of noted earlier on that you maybe think it is an area Chelsea need to strengthen as well.
Yeah, definitely. Elise is someone who can play through the middle as well, and he has done at Crystal Palace before. He's a really, really exciting footballer to watch. He's really skillful, really direct, quick. I personally would love to see him at Chelsea, just sort of watch him play every week, because whenever I do watch Palace, which is not too often, I always do. He always stands out. Him and Eze always stand out to me, being those real street sort of footballers who we've seen in the Premier League for down the years. But yeah, nothing advanced at this point. All I've got on that is Chelsea like him, and he does fit the profile, like I was saying, of that right winger who can play in the middle, similar to Mohamed Kudus, but he looks very much Brighton bound now, which is a great move for Brighton. Sort of going under the radar a bit. He's definitely a well sought after player. Chelsea and Arsenal both wanted him. So for Brighton to get that deal over the line, if they do indeed, then I think that's great for them. A bit of a blow for Chelsea. Maybe they missed out on him because he does a very talented player. Obviously, Ryan Cherki as well is, I guess, similar in terms of profile, and has played in the middle and on the right-hand side and even on the left for Lyon. So that's clearly an area Chelsea are looking to buy. And yeah, out of those three options, I think Elise, in my opinion, I think he would be the best option for Chelsea.
Yeah, certainly one to keep an eye on, an exciting player. I think, like you, I also enjoy watching him. And Eze, I think it'd be a big miss for Crystal Palace as well. So it'd be interesting to see how much they would let him go for.
I don't really think as well, didn't he? He said, I think maybe last week, that he kind of admitted that it's going to be hard for them to keep him, Elise, because apparently Man City are after him as well. And they obviously just let Mahrez leave to go to Saudi Arabia. So I guess he sort of would be a like-for-like replacement for Mahrez. So yeah, by all accounts, it looks like he's there for the taking. It's just whether or not it'll be Man City or Chelsea or someone else, perhaps.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess as we reach the final weeks of transfer season, we have some proper football to talk about. The Premier League returns this weekend. We'll be at Stamford Bridge to watch Chelsea versus Liverpool, the game that is destined to end in a draw once again. But yeah, Premier League football is back. It's going to be a big test for both sides. Chelsea, I guess on paper, their most difficult game until like October or something like that. Chelsea have a big opportunity to have a good start of the season, but will be required to set the tone against Liverpool. Both sides perhaps lacking depth in defensive midfield positions. It could be quite an open game, I think. So it'll be interesting to see whether we can actually see some goals on this occasion. What are you looking forward to about the weekend, Bobby?
I think it's like a really, really interesting game because it's like you just mentioned, and we spoke a bit about it before press and record. I guess both sides are in a similar sort of position. They both definitely underperformed last season. Chelsea more so than Liverpool, but Liverpool perhaps going in with even bigger expectations after almost winning the quadruple the season before. Both have spent money this summer. Both have let a lot of players leave. Like Liverpool's midfield, I think 4 of them in total have left, and the midfield 3 they played against the German side, who I can't remember, on last night on Monday.
Darmstadt, I think it was.
Darmstadt, that's the one. Was very interesting. They had McAllister, Gakpo, and Szoboszlai. And then obviously Trent did his sort of hybrid thing when he comes into midfield. So it would be interesting to see if they go that attacking at Stamford Bridge. But usually when it's sort of last game of pre-season, it's an indication of what sort of side the manager will put out. So maybe they will. Maybe Klopp fancies that. Obviously, they're trying to sign Romeo Lavia as well, who Chelsea have been very interested in, but Liverpool seem to be leading that race. But they've had 3 bids rejected from Southampton for him. Southampton want 50 million. Some very similar things going on with that, and obviously Chelsea trying to get Caicedo from Brighton. Both South Coast clubs trying to get as much money as they can for their midfielders, and obviously they have every right to, but both under good contracts there, so they have no real pressure to sell. But it doesn't look like Liverpool will get Lavia in for the game on Sunday, and I think you need to be registered by Friday at 12 o'clock, last working day before, as per the Premier League rules. But yeah, I mean, both sides are very much lacking central midfielders, so the midfield battle, if there even is one, would be very interesting to see. I think there has to be goals this time because I know the last 4 games, because it was the 2 cup finals.
Yeah, they had the exciting one in January where Pulisic scored, and it was 2-2, I think. It's done.
Oh yeah.
But since then, I think there have been no goals in 4.
Yeah, so and that seems an absolute age ago. But I think there has to be goals this time, right? First game of the season. Like I said, both sides lacking midfielders. The game surely is going to be very open. Liverpool's pre-season has seen them, concede loads of goals. There's definitely defensive frailties there. And the new system they're trying out, that they tried out towards the end of last season, there's definitely ways to exploit that. There's obviously ways Liverpool can use it to their advantage as well when they get Trent on the ball in the sort of number 8 role. He can obviously be devastating with his passes, but I think you made a good point, Scott, about Mykhailo Mudryk. You can talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be really interesting if he gets the shout after Nkunku's injury, just how much his pace can exploit that space on Liverpool's right. I think the selection of those forward positions is going to be really interesting in general. Pochettino's kind of tended to offer a wide winger, which I guess had looked like being Raheem Sterling, given he started that final game against Borussia Dortmund, and then a winger who cuts inside. So that was Nkunku. Obviously, he was then replaced by Mudryk. We have seen Mudryk with the ability to cut inside. Obviously, scored that outstanding goal in pre-season, combined with Nicholas Jackson. But Ian Maatsen has obviously played that role really well as well. So I do think he's a strong contender to play at the weekend. But I think there will be a temptation to see Mudryk at his very best against Liverpool. We saw it, obviously, against a very unfortunate James Milner, I think, given how Mudryk's rest of the season Mudryk played, when he probably wondered if he was faced the same player as everybody else. But we've seen more of that Mudryk over pre-season, and I think for anybody picking a fantasy team, and I've been telling all my friends that Mudryk is a dark horse for a very good player this season, I think. So hopefully for Chelsea that does pay off, and maybe we do see him with Chilwell bombing up that wing as well. I think Reece James has been a bit more restrained in his attacking progress. Perhaps still looking to get back to his very best, still building that fitness to really operate like we've all seen Reece James can. But, even when he's still not at his very, very best, Reece James is a very good player.
You just reminded me as well. I need to change my fantasy football team. I got Nkunku up front.
Yeah, I will say I did a draft with some friends, and I thought, I know Nkunku is going to be injured. I'll get him for later on in the season. Was expecting maybe a few weeks, and then potentially 4 months is an absolutely devastating blow to my draft league prospects.
Yeah, I saw him at 7.5 mil. I thought that was a bargain, but they must have known.
Yeah, it's a devastating blow. And I think that midfield area is going to be really interesting for Chelsea as well. Obviously, Enzo Fernandez is the man who is going to start regardless. I think a lot of people maybe would have expected Andres Santos to have pressed his claim and have an opportunity. But I think because we saw Conor Gallagher against Dortmund, I think probably he's going to be the one to start. Pochettino did kind of suggest in his answer to a Chicago native about why Slonina didn't play that he did want to see the players that were in his thoughts, I think. And obviously Santos didn't get on in that game at all. And then I think really interestingly is that Carney Chukwuemeka could be starting in that number 10 spot.
Yeah, I think he's probably the stand-up contender now, really, now with Nkunku's injury. We've sort of seen him play all over the shop for Chelsea since he's signed, but I remember he did an interview with Chelsea's media team probably last season. And I was reading it, and he did say that sort of right number 8 and a number 10 are his favourite positions. And we've seen him in the right number 8, but we haven't properly seen him as number 10 yet. So I think it's definitely something worth a go. Super talented player, really hard to tackle when he gets going. And yeah, if you can find sort of space between it'll be difficult because Liverpool play such a high line, but to try and find space between midfield and defence, then he could obviously cause Liverpool some real problems. And the one thing you would say about Chukwuemeka is obviously he didn't get many chances last season, so it's not too much of a criticism, but he does need to add goals and assists to his game. I'm not sure he had any last season, unless I'm wrong. But I think if he plays him a number 10 spot, then obviously that becomes more of an opportunity for him. I do think if he can start the season well, especially with this Nkunku injury, I do think he'll play a really big part in Pochettino's first season. And I did a bit, I think back in May, that Chelsea were considering loaning him out next season. That was the plan. I think it was prior to Pochettino's appointment. But obviously, Pochettino's come in and worked with him intensely in England and America, and obviously really likes what he sees, judging by all the chances he's getting. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see him. Feels like we haven't properly seen him yet, even though we've seen him a handful of times.
Yeah, and he's one of these players, obviously didn't play much last season, but you'd kind of forget how young he is as well, because he is still just 19, and like you say, he is all of a sudden a contender for the starting lineup. And we spoke to him after the game and against Dortmund, and he certainly said his ambition was to break into this Chelsea team, just to provide assists, to score goals, and like you say, he is going to receive that opportunity, particularly with Nkunku's injury. That injury also probably makes it pretty clear that Nicholas Jackson's going to start the game. I think you noted earlier on, he's shown a lot of all-round ability. Despite his frame, I think his preference certainly is to get in behind a back line and, have that opportunity to finish a chance one-on-one. Early in the preseason games, I think, I can't remember if it was against Wrexham or whether it was against Brighton, but the game finished and he just kind of reinforced to any teammate that would listen about the kind of passes he wants in behind all the time. Cucurella played a great ball through at him to score as well. And I think we've seen Chelsea look for that pass more often as they've got a bit more familiar with him. His finishing perhaps wasn't up to the same standard in the final 2 preseason games, but that's certainly something Chelsea can look to exploit against that high Liverpool line.
Yeah, absolutely. Watched a lot of Liverpool in pre-season, and they've conceded a lot of goals from simple, sort of high lofted balls through the middle. Very what you would consider to be basic defending, and obviously it's something Klopp will be trying to sort out before the game. But if Chelsea can sort of get get to grips with that early on. I'm sure Pochettino will be drilling it into his players to go almost route one to Jackson at some points. Then he will, because he's incredibly quick, and Liverpool, to be fair, do have two very pacey centre backs in Konate and Van Dijk, who will probably start at the weekend. Konate especially, Van Dijk perhaps not as much since his injury. But yeah, it'll definitely be an interesting one. Obviously, they got Alisson as well, who's very good at sweeping the ball up. But if they can find that right pass to Jackson, I do think that's a really dangerous weapon for Chelsea to use, and one they can have real fun with at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, and I guess we've kind of maybe presumed that Chilwell and James will start, but it seems maybe pretty likely that could be Levi, Colwill, and Thiago Silva at the heart of defence too.
Yeah, I think it has to be, really. We haven't seen Disasi yet. He's properly, and then you've got Badia Shiel, who's coming back from injury. Trevor Chalobah, of course, we spoke about earlier. But I do think Levi Colwill, against Liverpool as well, who were very keen on signing him before he signed his 6-year contract. I think he has to play, and he wanted those assurances from Pochettino that he would be part of the first team plans this season, and you don't really get many bigger games in this first game of the season and under a new manager against the top side like Liverpool. So, yeah, and obviously Thiago Silva goes without saying, he's proven season after season with Chelsea how good he is despite being almost 40 years old, and I don't have any doubts that he'll have a good game on Sunday, really. The least of my worries in the Chelsea team. I'd say the centre-back pairing are probably, the least of my worries in the Chelsea team.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think there's almost maybe not an understanding, but an expectation from Chelsea fans, Chelsea reporters, anybody that even rates Thiago Silva really highly, given what he's done over the last few seasons, been Chelsea's standout defender, undoubtedly. Perhaps that he will be forced to kind of fade out the team over the course of the season. Obviously, turns 39. Chelsea have all these young, really exciting defenders coming through. But what was really notable in the preseason tour, as soon as you mention Thiago Silva to kind of anybody in that Chelsea team, the way the adoration they end up speaking with, how their minds are just blown by how good he is. It's just it stands out so much. And yeah, I think it's going to be really exciting to have Silva kind of teach a lot of these guys over the next 12 months as well.
Yeah, I think if in an ideal world, they might have phased him out a bit and had Fofana there alongside Colwill, because, they're both, Colwill and Fofana are both so young, so that could have been Chelsea's centre-back partnership for the next few years, but obviously that isn't the case, and Thiago is probably going to have to play more football than perhaps Pochettino would have hoped for, but at the same time, it's not an issue really for Pochettino, because he knows what he's going to get from Thiago Silva every week. You rarely see him have less than a 7 out of 10. And just a point I forgot to make about Colwill as well. I think he showed a lot of his long diagonal passing in pre-season. I think that'd be really important, especially against a side like Liverpool, who obviously press their front three of Salah. It's probably going to be Salah, Diaz, and Jota. It looks like that's what they played against Darmstadt at the weekend.
And I think it's worth noting that Colwill will certainly make them press as well. If he's left on the wall, he's waiting until they come right up to him.
Exactly, and I think his composure on the ball is brilliant. Probably only John Stones you'd see in England from an English defender who could match sort of his composure on the ball. And I think having that against Liverpool, even though it might be a bit risky, because like you said, he will be pressed intensely. But I do think he will be able to play his way out of the press. And once you get out of the press, as hard as it is against a team like Liverpool, especially when they're at the best, then you've got a good chance, because half of Liverpool's teams, behind the ball.
Yeah. And I'm going to make my nice and safe prediction that it'll be another draw. But I will say there'll be goals this time. I think the midfield is going to be too open for there not to be goals. Where are you standing for this weekend?
I'm going to have to go for a draw, Scott. I'm obviously going to have to go for a draw. I'll go... Give me a 3-3.
Oh, what a game that would be to start the season.
Yeah.
Of course, Chelsea supporters will want to win, but that would be certainly a exciting way to start. A sign of perhaps the football that we could see under Mauricio Pochettino. They certainly have looked fitter this summer, and I think we're in for some good performances this season, and it's going to be really exciting to see how Chelsea do this season, despite a massive blow in the form of Christopher Nkunku's injury to start off with. We'll end things there. Of course, we'll have plenty more to come in the transfer market on Football.London, plenty more in the build-up to Liverpool. We'll be, of course, all across Mauricio Pochettino's press conference on Friday, probably, from Cobham. And then, of course, that Liverpool match on Sunday. We'll bring you all the updates, all the reaction, live blog, the whole lot, as per usual. And yeah, Premier League football is back. So thank you very much for joining us. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Leave us a lovely rating if you feel so inclined, and that would be massively appreciated in helping us grow the podcast. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll speak again soon, and we'll see how Chelsea get on this weekend.